Immediately felt the incredible power of the ring to rule all. "Woof!" shouted the always cautious and loyal Shuken loudly into the hermit's back. "Good thing there are useful slaves," the mad hermit noted to himself for the umpteenth time. The cosplayer quickly put out the name of the theater owner, worth the train ride. Boris Mart gave him the name. Guildhead Ares is hiding in a distant underground bunker, but with teleportation magic, it's not a problem, Hyunwoo pondered. The diligent slave reported for the completion of the circle, and after all, she had previously given a useless performance. Hyunwoo worriedly asked the talking tool if she was okay, or else it was a shame to lose her. She nodded weakly. "Then, let's get started," the mad hermit decided, but before he did, he remembered. He tossed the girl the phone so that she barely caught it with her tired hands. "Pass it to Seo Young," said the homeless emperor. "Let him keep it," he added. The girl with insomnia syndrome even brightened up at receiving such an easy assignment. Hyunwoo jumped into the warp portal. The slave girl perked up as he left, the homeless hermit noticed. He found himself in a dark, deaf basement, no windows or doors. What a strange place, the homeless hermit asked himself. It's not like his slave betrayed him and sent him to a place he can't get out of. A polite man stepped out of the shadows and said hello to the hermit. Boris Mart recognized the theater director, a mad recluse. Even as Hyunwoo confirmed, so many performances with his actors watched, said the mad hermit. The main performance won't begin until now, the director of the traveling theater informed him. They are well prepared, stated the Lord of the Rings, to the 9th floor frontiersman. Gathering information didn't work, so it meant he was nothing but an illegal alien in front of him, the hermit realized. Great, said the homeless border guard. 2 birds with 1 stone, we'll close the theater and eliminate the illegal alien. This place is a trap in itself, Lord of the Rings said. They switched the coordinates so the hermit would fall into it. How nice of the miscreants to give away the base, said the border agent, and proceeded to apprehend the illegal. The blow exploded with a bright, blinding flash. The hermit didn't mince words. But instead of the target, the hand hit the magic barrier, surprised Hyunwoo. This barrier is no match for his low-grade magic, the hermit illegal told the hermit. The shockwave threw the crazed border guard off. The illegal alien proved to be a tough nut to crack. Hyunwoo braked, leaving 2 deep furrows on the ground. The hermit noticed movement above him and looked up. Dozens of guns of various kinds loomed menacingly over him. The illegal spoke in a theatrical voice and decided to introduce himself again. The Magneto cosplayer gave out a long pathos speech, which Hyunwoo let slip past his ears, and introduced himself as Replicant. With a wave of his hand, the illegal artifact forger controlled the guns, attacking the mad border guard. Hyunwoo had to jump like a boar to dodge the constant attacks from above. The mad hermit applied a shadow step and dodged the powerful strike. A barrier as strong as the illegal replicants cannot be broken through with a normal attack, the hermit realized. Since it was such a big deal, Hyunwoo decided it was time to go for it and activated the power of absurd circle of mana. It was necessary to use the divine longsword's attack to stall for time, the hermit decided. The illegal hunter came close to the target. Will the theater director endure it? Divinely absurd slipper kick, shouted Hyunwoo words of strength. For a second, he managed to break through the Magneto's magical barrier. Noticing the effect, Hyunwoo stretched in a twine for a second kick. But suddenly the kick lost all absurd power, the glow of the red aura weakened. Boris Magnetovich grabbed the hermit's leg. How much mana for a single blow, he praised Hyunwoo's futile efforts. Lord of the Rings, and swung himself up for a punch, clenching his ringed fist. A blow of unprecedented force, pierced through the mad hermit's resistance. The fighters returned to their original positions by the start of the battle. The homeless frontiersman could gather mana more, it would immediately dissipate. Mana freeze politely explained by the villain, the effect is imposed by the entire room. The illegal counterfeiter was well prepared for his encounter with the 9th floor border guard. As Hyunwoo fought the final duo of costumers, the illegal was watching him closely. Most of Mad Hermit's attacks depend on his mana. What a mouthful he is, interrupted the cosplayer of the Magneto, the Mad Hermit. Bariska continued to brag. Isn't his opponent devoid of his absurd attacks now? Hyunwoo smiled back. Aren't they in the same position right now? Of course you're right, agreed the Lord of the Rings and waved his hand. An illegal replicant counterfeiter could still run his fakes. Hyunwoo was having a hard time dodging the illegal's attacks. Even the shadow step didn't work anymore. He took a direct hit from a heavy shell. Even for his stalwart, it was too much. Hoping in vain for resilience, Boris Magnetovich gloated at the hermit, drawing first blood, all forgeries exceeding S+ rank. The room had no visible exit, and therefore the way lay only through victory, the hermit reasoned. The illegal counterfeiter prepared to attack and raised the barrier. "Where is it?" searched Hyunwoo with his eyes, scanning every item of the illegal. "What causes mana freezing?" His gaze fell on the staff in Magnetovich's hands. "This is it." Hyunwoo has gotten close to the theater director. The barrier is solid, but not enough to contain his pure power. The mad hermit dodged the counterattacks of the heavy shells. He flew up to the ceiling and pushed off again, changing his trajectory. The mad hermit somersaulted in the air. He recalled a special technique from the manga he had read this morning. Even though he had no mana, it could work. Holy motivational kick under his sciatica, shouted the hermit words of power. The punch worked at full power. Hyunwoo felt it perfectly. But Boris Magnetovich easily blocked the combat technicians with his shells. "Oops," thought the mad hermit, and clenched his teeth tighter. At the last second, he parried the blow of the iron stick with the back of his fist. Magnetovich's swipe spun the mad hermit around as if in a dance. With cat-like agility, the border guard landed on all four limbs. "Second time the barrier is broken, this time without mana," wondered the illegal forger. The performance was a success. Now the theater director can perform as well, the illegal stated. The specialty of this Cladenza sword, stated the relic forger, is that it adopts the abilities of other weapons. There is an ancient myth about a hero that fought with the power of friendship and love, the theater director went on to say. The Jedi sword in the hands of the gloating director glowed with a welding arc. "That's what a proper build means," said the relic forger, throwing 100 reinforcements on the blade. With that, he went on the offensive face to face with the unarmed hermit. Hyunwoo saw the movements with the corner of his eye, but he couldn't dodge in time. The sting of the blade stabbed into his skin. Without mana, there was little the hermit could do, and Boris Magnetovich was not letting up. Blow after blow followed blow, the mad hermit barely keeping up. The satisfied counterfeiter swung his chain mace. The spiky stuff hit. It was echoed by other sharp objects obeying Magnetovich's power. And lastly, the theater man pulled out another sword, the only original among his fakes. Berserk sword, with the debuff of inferiority complex, snatched he steel train rail. Hyunwoo stared doomfully at Gat's illegal cosplay. "That's it," concluded the introduction by the director of the illegal. But the mad hermit was still standing on his own too, though covered in wounds. "The guard didn't give up, let me ask you," he told the illegal counterfeiter. "Since the guard looks like a beaten dog, we can have a chat," agreed Boris Mart. "Why kill the border guard?" the hermit asked. He wanted to get the illegal to talk. To ascend the throne, the illegal replied succinctly, as if it was implied in itself. "Throne got the frontiersman new input in this difficult case. What more needs to be answered? It's time to end," decided the illegal theater director. "A bastard with strong items," Hyunwoo said. "These replicas dealt critical damage, not simple scratches. Did you lose your mind before you died?" Boris asked. But Hyunwoo replied that he had trump cards too. "Mana," marveled Boris Mart at the dizzy glow around the hermit. No, not her, he guessed. But the hermit was already dissolving into the teleport pillar. "Good performance, but he'll get his ticket money back later," the hermit said lastly. "See you soon," the border guard said goodbye to the illegal artifact forger. Said the mad hermit to the illegal and disappeared into the warp. Hyunwoo fell out in the virtual room where the android girl lived. Ta ran up to the hermit in terror, examining him. But the mad border guard felt better than he looked. By pressing a button, he changed the interior of the room. Boris Magnetovich, indignant, the only spectator of the theater, and that one ran away at intermission. Illegal couldn't trace the coordinates of the teleport, and you need to catch the enemy while he's wounded. The thin thread of mana that the hermit had left behind caught his attention. Boriska realized that since the teleport thread hadn't been severed, it meant that the hermit had hidden in subspace and was in fact still here. The Lord of the Rings has prepared all his artifacts. The intermission will not be long. When the viewer comes back, Illegal will force him to watch it all the way through. The first floor of the training tower recognized the android girl in the room. The bandaged hermit was exercising his mad kung fu style. Though the android had used first aid protocol on the hermit's wounds were deep. The silver-haired girl regretted not finding a healing potion or artifact, only a first aid kit. Illegal smuggler of fake artifacts also can freeze mana. The situation is lousy, pondered the hermit. 20 minutes from now, the circuitry will be locked down and he'll be out. The mad hermit took a deep exhale. Finished, he said. Insane kung fu training complete, he replied to the neural network girl. Training, in his condition. The hermit looked unconcerned. The android was worried. She was part of his system, after all. Hyunwoo told the little girl that he was leaving, but she worried that the hermit hadn't thought things through enough. He affectionately rubbed the neuroset on the silky fiber optic on his head. It's different this time, reassured the hermit android. He actually looked pleased. Bandaged as if after an encounter with a lawnmower, he came out of warp. The hermit looked refreshed after a brief intermission, perhaps snatching a drink for a friend, as a proper audience member should. Welcome back. Boris Magnetovich greeted him as if he were Prince Arthas. The illegal replicant was very happy to have a single spectator. But the mad hermit at once broke the serious atmosphere of the performance and laughed. I'm sorry, it just slipped out. Excuse the spectator border guard. Illegal confused his prepared remarks and sprinkled them randomly, along with heavy projectiles. He attacked with pathos. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. How long can it be? He thought, promising graves, death, instead of just tiring of these theater people. He has trained countless fictional martial arts, thus gathering the power of absurdity. But there is something that is not a part of them. It was all about the principles of martial arts, the concepts on which they were based, their fundamentals. But you can't just learn this principle. Every master saves his shoots of knowledge. However, in a short period of time in the warp room, Hyunwoo had undercut the cheats, in the sense of reaching enlightenment. The mad hermit summarized all the experience he had accumulated in martial arts, as well as the spirit of the duels with the illegal electric and the demon loli that used the exact opposite experience. The artifact's chopping blow was repelled by his bare hand without harming it. All of this helped the mad hermit discover the principle of grafting. From each master, he cut shoots and grafted their skills onto himself. The rogue replicator staggered back, his power no longer working on the hermit. He thought as he watched the border guard reflecting all the requests for registration. Hyunwoo was jubilant. His new concept had already proven itself perfectly. Outwardly, nothing had changed. The wounds were the same, and the lines of the illegal theater-goer still worked, perplexed Boriska. The level of skill turned the hermit into a different person, the Lord of the Rings realized. He had planned to play with the wounded man before finishing him off, but he didn't delay, feeling threatened. Boriska threw himself into a desperate attack. To hell with the script when the whole theater is on fire. Hyunwoo was copying Dr. Strange's gestures with a smug look. He thinks it's a matrix, and you can block all the blows with one hand, the illegal director shouted. Boris delivered a stabbing blow with his blade to the hermit's chest area. An unknown force of cheater skills wound his arm, intercepting the blow. Boriska howled in pain, but Hyunwoo told him to clench his fangs tighter. Rock, paper, scissors, he applied his trademark mad hermit trick. Boris was thrown back by the senseless words of power. Right crown, left funeral, shouted the mad hermit and finished off the enemy. The counterfeiter was pinned to the floor like a steel battering ram. The hermit swung to kill the dog, but his attack was interrupted. The heavy artifact projectiles made him jump the boar again. The hermit bit his tongue. Dodging everyone was problematic. Good for you and a mortar with a crushed vegetable, the wounded illegal asked and stood up. Cheater pumped in the pause menu before the fight. The theater director was angry. In one fell swoop, he unleashed the power of all the smuggled artifacts. Illegal snatched the sword of Berserk's inferiority, its ability to absorb all the stats of other weapons, let the replicant know. How childish to measure who has the most, the mad hermit remarked. Now we'll see if Boris Magnetovich decides to make the final blow. Unlikely that his body could withstand more than one blow with all the power of his inferiority complex. Boris put everything into one blow. The heavy steel beam came down on the insane hermit with a full swing. King Kong's penknife strained by its size even a demented border guard. Well, that ape who has a bigger gun is cooler, thought to himself, illegal counterfeiter. Hyunwoo absorbed the full power of the punch flowing through his body and set the punch with a rail of inferiority. Mana? Boris thought at first, but then he recognized the familiar energy. The power of inoculation, said the mad hermit, and approached the illegal immigrant sharply. Illegal migrants will be detained, shouted the border guard in charge. Hyunwoo aimed his own punch at Boris, amplifying with powerful words of pathos and absurdity. Fucking cheater, the illegal shouted one last time and took a clean hit. Instant death tore the illegal's body apart. That's the end of the tale. Who is the cheater and the good guy? Exhaled the mad hermit. The remains of the illegal were disappearing along with replica artifacts. But the magic duffel didn't disappear. Hyunwoo noticed the artifact. At least some loot, he thought, picking up an object from the floor. Hermione's bag prompted the system. The thingy could hold 15 items. The hermit buried the only real inferiority complex in the pouch. A bit stingy for a boss like this, the loot was appreciated by the mad frontiersman. Time to go home, the homeless hermit remarked. I wish I could find some clothes. He looked around, and the phone. The secret dungeon door opened, and the last of the wandering troupe of costumers called out to the master. And I was horrified to discover that I had just become an unemployed actor. S-level luck no other way smirked at the hermit. He raced toward the secret wicket in the illegal director's trap. A numbskull cosplayer got caught in the clutches of border control. Any money, drugs, weapons? Asked the tired hermit, and began a search. Need your clothes, naked date 100, muttered the homeless hermit, and your phone, and your wallet, and whatever else you have. 3 days later, the mad hermit called a press conference, saying he knew who attacked homeless Shay Ken. As always, the mad hermit showed up in a tracksuit. Hyunwoo stated that he would be brief, say what he wanted to say, and leave immediately without further explanation. Uninvited guests in Shu Heng's house, the hermit expounded, had come for him. In lieu of evidence, he provided a recording fabricated by Ave's neural network the day before, but who can ask the mad hermit? The note showed that the guild leader of the Ares International Guild, Boris Marth, was behind everything. Some might think he fabricated the tape. The hermit excused himself, but there is other evidence. Hyunwoo hoped that the Ares Guild would give an explanation, but secretly expected more compensation from them. 3 days later, when the homeless hermit was still staying with friends, a crowd of journalists gathered outside the house where Hyuk-seong-woo had gone. They shouted. The boss of the Guardian Mafia group was sitting in the living room. He told his friends the hard truth about their world. They actually live on the 9th floor of the Matrix, but there are others. They had a hard time accepting the truth. Even little Seo Yeon frowned her forehead, thinking about Hyunwoo's border service. Then just screw it, advised the haughty mad mobster. She hesitated to answer, but the hermit realized how unbelievable it sounded. That's about what he expected, the hermit thought, looking at the concerned faces of his friends. But sooner or later he had to tell them he could still explain the rifts and illegals. No wonder the not-so-altruistic Hyunwoo was doing the rifts, Shiken remarked. So an illegal alien was detained this time too, asked the cute Seo Yeon. Not quite answering the hermit, the guild leader turned out to be an illegal replicant, 2 geese in one volley. The mad hermit wanted to continue the tale of his exploits of service, but they were interrupted by shouts from the street. Tired, the mob boss got angry, but the cautious Shurken asked if he was in the right state to talk to people. Mad unwrapped the bandages, flashing his bogatyric abs, and told his friend it was okay. The deranged mob boss walked out to reporters under a hail of questions, but when the hermit came out, he didn't see what he expected. The faithful apprentice meets the homeless emperor properly. Honoring the master, the bright apprentice formally greeted the hermit. Why had his dark past grown on his doorstep if the hermit had left him in China? He asked himself. The faces of friends who just found out this morning that their friend is Agent Smith and now also a crazy teacher. The mad empress faithfully caught every word of the master. Who is this? Asked the hermit. Pointing his finger at the black-headed best bodyguards, replied the mad apprentice. Let them go, he asked, and the bodyguards immediately disappeared. Quan Seo questioned his friend if the Dragon Empress from the Pizhou Guild was definitely in front of them. A cautious Shurken replied that it was the nickname of the world top 5 ranking, much to Hyunwoo's surprise. 5th in the world rankings, the hermit glanced at the lovely apprentice before him. When he had trained her, he had only passed on some of the emperor's techniques, the mad hermit recalled. How did this meek sheep become so strong, he wondered. The mad apprentice bumped her forehead and begged the master's forgiveness. She apologized for not being able to follow all his precepts. After all, he had told her that there could be no one superior, but the hermit immediately interrupted his apprentice before she blabbed too much. But the flow of martial arts-inspired sentimental nonsense could no longer be contained. Hyunwoo pressed the off button on the monitor of the whiteboard. "Don't make me raise my voice," he said in the voice of a mad emperor, and the student blushed. The masochist's apprentice was drooling contentedly when the cautious Shurken turned to the hermit. "Mi Ren," the hermit's friend stuttered with excitement. The insane disciple was covered in a bloodthirsty aura of darkness. Then Shurken even heard her voice in her head, "Don't you dare call me by my teacher's name." "What binds them together?" asked a cautious Shurken while Seo-yeon, with Quan Seo tactfully removed. "Apprentice," replied Hyunwoo, stroking the contented cat to calm her temper. Cautious, Shurken stacked at the bottom of the test tube. "A rank 5 disciple," he muttered. "The bastards are noisy," the mad emperor said, and the apprentice offered to finish them off. "Everyone under the knife," she said with a cute face, but the homeless emperor stopped her. "What can't she ask?" with the expression of a cute kitten. The mob boss smirked when he got the text message he'd been waiting for. "I'll be gone for a while," he said to a dejected Shurken. "Aries Moody's have made contact," the mad mob boss explained. They met at a cafe nearby. Hyunwoo was as usual neglecting the officiousness. Why not squeeze half of the guild in a diner? "Let's discuss this directly," declared the insane mob boss to the weakling in front of him. Boris's deputy came to meet him in person. He was visibly nervous. Borisky's deputy was resenting why he should be the one to clean up the mess they'd made. Also, the hermit showed the number 6 at the conference, so he has the Numenera from the cosplayer order as a hostage and witness. It was probably because of this crazy guy that the boss was killed, Boris's deputy thought. The guild was bursting at the seams. He was in a hurry to figure it all out and asked the hermit what he wanted. The deputy promised to process the request for compensation, which the hermit will be satisfied with. "All of Korea's dungeons," the mob boss declared to the deputy's amazement. But Hyunwoo had something to blackmail them with. "There's a long tail of criminals following the guild, and the valuable witness has already put everyone on the take," the mad mobster hinted. He guessed at random, but from the reaction of the deputy, he realized he had hit the bullseye. Racketeering is his second profession, the hermit thought. "But mercy is familiar to him," declared the homeless mobster, "and he agrees to 40% of the Korean lands in the hands of Aries." Tightly, he grabbed us by the Fabergé, horrified Boriska's deputy. Satisfied with business, the head mad mobster left the diner, his empire slowly growing. The mad disciple didn't slacken her zeal despite the fact that they were far away from the empire. "Told you to remove the extras," reminded the homeless emperor, and they disappeared. Her hand reached forward as if the girl wanted to touch the master while he grunted. He turned around and asked her what she was doing, but the mad apprentice only wagged her tail. She took one look at the pathetic slug in the diner and memorized his face. To bring it to his mad master one day. The girl turned her back, escorting the mad teacher with a look. In her hand, she clutched a small device of unknown purpose. "All dogs gather. The chief candidate for the emperor's concubine commanded. Deputy Boriska, begging for mercy, help the hooligans are depriving his eyesight," shouted he. Black shadows hurled against the concrete wall of the parking lot. Nothing special stated the senior dog of the Empress's personal guard. The deputy recognized them as soldiers of the Pizhou Guild. The deputy shouted pathetic excuses for his lack of involvement, but to the Empress's hounds, his only fault was that Aries existed. The dogs ripped out the deputy's fingernails on his left hand so he could better remember their words. "Dare to anger the Lord again and they will surely return," the men in skull masks told him. "Cold wave," complained the advanced function neural network. Last time Hyunwoo never changed the interior before leaving. But the girl could have summoned him. The guilt-ridden hermit asked guiltily. After using the schematic, 5 days he's unavailable, the android Av explained. Hyunwoo nodded. He couldn't wait to see what could be improved this time, so he asked the android. The girl cheerfully announced that an update had been pushed into the system. As that function of psychoanalysis, remembered the mad hermit, not quite heard him answer the android. Each improvement requires a level increase. Hyunwoo had fallen out of reality. That's how long it took to work as a border guard in 3 shifts without a break. How to reach a high level in the system if progress crawls like a turtle, the hermit lamented. But the answer lay on the surface. If he wanted more information, he could properly interrogate the illegals, the android pointed out to him. In addition to the usual illegals, there are those who have already climbed the tower once and then started a new ascent. But why this recursion, the android did not know. Hyunwoo realized that repeat illegal aliens might know a lot more useful things. The forger replicant spoke of something similar, that there was a throne at the top of the tower, the mad hermit recalled. The words didn't say anything on their own, which meant we'd have to interrogate the other illegals, the hunter pondered. That's it for now, stated a sharp, defiant Hyunwoo, but the neural network stopped him. Hasyainama, Plestishanama, Vernimana, rambled the muzzle of the electron. And how do you say no to such? Wondered the mad hermit, whose mimimeter was going off the charts. Eventually, the android quickly learned to be nice and hack leather bags, he concluded. The friends met at a construction site where a huge mansion was being built. A humble dwelling for a mentor, reported the bright student, knowing the homeless hermit's weaknesses. Modest, Hyunwoo grimaced as Shi-kyung Googled the place online. This land was being allocated for a new city, he read from the news, and was more horrified than the hermit. How much money is that? Her mad teacher asked. He bit his lip, realizing the value of such a gift from the hands of a loyal student. What's going on? Wondered the mad hermit. Why he was being treated so well, considering the devoted disciple. What is she hiding? He asked himself. A hidden motive, a secret identity. These questions kept the hermit uneasy. Always faithful, read his status to the surprised student. Apprentice. Turned insane hermit who lost his social skills in deep childhood. Maybe she's just a pervert, the mad emperor asked bluntly. Even the always reserved Shiken shrieked at the mad hermit. How can you say such a thing to a child? He sternly reprimanded his friend. But she is the little one, the hermit thought. Looking at her carefully, he asked when the crazy student was going to be going back to China. The owner wants her to leave, the girl replied with the look of an abandoned kitten, so Hyunwoo hurriedly clarified that he was worried about Pei-Zhou's affairs. The only place she should be is under heaven, replied the satisfied cat. Oh, sighed the mad hermit and told her to just do something. The always cautious Shur-ken noticed something between the two madmen. What happened between them? Asked the hunter of the mad hermit. He portrayed a sweet girl that was beyond excited about the opportunity to serve the teacher, but the mad hermit told him to forget everything. Forgotten, Shuken agreed with him, and asked when the mad teacher would go to the USA. He reminded his friend that he had received an invitation from the International Hunters Association. Hyunwoo was surprised. They want to bring the hermit into the S rank, Shiken explained. Hyunwoo remembered that they give money for ranking for nothing. And for the S rank, the payout was huge. Hyunwoo only memorized what was profitable. On the other hand, he's already rich, wondered the mad hermit. Having a place in the world rankings is prestigious, Shiken thought dreamily. Then it's worth a trip there, crazy hermit. A few days later, the trio arrived at the World Association building. Hyunwoo marveled at the size of the park around them. The mad emperor's ardent disciple offered to build one in his mansion, but Hyunwoo talked her out of it. Shiken said hello to the man who greeted them. The man with the monocle, his name was Liam, and he immediately recognized the living legend. Shiken introduced him formally as a member of the association's Supreme Council, Senator Liam. The latter suggested that he be called Qui-Gon. He politely shook hands with the mad hermit, exchanging pleasantries. He also extended his hand to the mad student, recognizing her as the Empress of Dragons. But the girl didn't even move. There is only one sky, thought she. But why did the senator come in person? Asked a cautious Shiken, to which the wily politician replied that he came for Kim Hyunwoo's sake as a fan. Plus, the mad hermit came here to learn his place in the rankings. Qui-Gon volunteered to personally escort them to the testing building. He opened the modernist door with his fingerprint and invited guests inside. The place looked like a state-of-the-art super lab, marveled the Mad Hermit. The test itself is pretty simple. You have to touch the purple orb, it will do everything, Senator Liam explained. So simple, the Hermit asked disappointedly, to which Liam replied that wouldn't it be nice to keep things simple. Well, thought the Mad Hermit, now we'll find out. Not much he trusted these machines, even his status was floundering with readings. He approached the balloon. The Mad Hermit's hand rested on the warm neon quartz. Observers froze in anticipation of the results, not knowing what to expect. Error 404, the Hermit read in the status that came out. What the hell, he thought, looking at the blank screen. Chic beauty. Seo Yan wiped her wet forehead and praised her group for doing a good job. The monsters are especially strong this time, thought the tired cutie. But more importantly, the monsters seem to have gotten smarter, as if someone had pumped up their intelligence level. Then again, maybe she's just winding herself up, the stunning huntress brushed off. She learned from the news that a third ranker would also be coming to the hunter's banquet, and she worried about the Mad Hermit. A few weeks ago, Shu Hyun suggested to Tiny Soyeon that they move their raid to the maze. Planning to follow Hyunwoo, she teased her friend, but he wondered if she wasn't going to do that. Not really, the beautiful girl evasively replied. Business was over for today. She sighed in relief. Cautious Shiken held her back. He had one question left, he said embarrassedly. The gorgeous beauty listened attentively to her friend. What kind of gifts do girls like? An embarrassed Shiken asked her. The question caught her completely by surprise. In so many years, Shiken hadn't asked such a thing. Deputy Bariska, biting the remains of his fingernails, the guild's stock value plummeted. The Lord of the Rings artifact also dissolved. But the biggest calamity isn't even angry shareholders. And the damn psycho Kim Hyunwoo, Boris's deputy, was wobbling that desk. 40% wailed, he. Someone walked in. Annoyed corporate worm turned on the principal and wanted to reprimand the bother. But quickly disgraced, Geralt Mason, consul of the World Hunters Association, paid him a visit at his workplace. What brought such an important guest, ingratiated corporate worm, Boris March answered him with a white-haired politician. They really were quite close, remembered the deputy. But Geralt Mason assured that he had come to lend 2 helping hands to a man in need. All for Boris, Mason continued. What will it be like for him when he returns and the guild is in decline? He gently placed his hand on the shoulder of the corporate pad. Just do as you're told, said Geralt Mason's eyes. The Mad Hermit stared stupidly at the blue status screen. Again, the stupid system was messing with his head. Can't calculate, error, the damn program kept repeating. This has never happened before, a concerned Qui-Gon informed them. The cautious Shuken volunteered to test the system and found that his rank had dropped. But this meant that the orb was definitely not broken and was working properly. The problem lay in Hyunwoo's crazy anomaly. Qui-Gon, confused and didn't know how to hide the awkwardness, the cute student, calmed him down by calling him a redneck. Master Great Heaven, began the ardent, passionate student. Shut your mouth, quickly cut her off by the mad teacher. Looks like he's come all the way for nothing. The Hermit was annoyed. But Qui-Go Jedi speak switched him to food. The banquet would start soon, he assured the Hermit. This hunter doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay and eat meat, Liam said in a strange voice. The Mad Hermit had had enough. The devoted apprentice kept a meticulous list of the future emperor's preferences. Qui-Gon was just contemplating how to further entertain the crazy guest when they were rudely interrupted. They turned around to see who was so bold as to allow themselves to forget about politeness. Bald Hulk, the third-place ranking was read by Hyunwoo with the help of a scan. The people around had also noticed the altercation and were avidly watching the outcome. So annoying, like a fly, the Hermit remarked. But Shuken cautioned that it was best not to mess with this hunter. This man has taken over all the gyms in the country. All the gyms, he is abusing his power everywhere, quickly explained the cautious Shikin. The bald Hulk flashed his bald head and clung to Hyunwoo. He clearly hadn't gotten a courtesy lesson in a long time, the mad teacher thought. I'll bet I've got a bigger stanza and bench press, bullied the square-headed Hermit. You know how many squats I do, squeeze the jock hum everything, he said to the hermit, pointing his finger. These are the words of great men like him, brushed off by the mad politeness teacher. The jock himself discreetly signed up for a crash course in politeness from crazy relationship professor Hyun-woo. Qui-guo tried to use the power of persuasion again, but it didn't work on the dumb ones. Hulk Crush swung his sledgehammers at the square skull, but the hermit turned away. Thanks for subscribing to the courtesy lessons, said the mad hermit, humming contentedly. Rock, paper, scissors sent the goofy jock flying. That one nearly knocked down the building's supporting wall, trapping everyone under the rubble. Is one lesson really enough? Hyun-woo was upset. He had prepared a whole course after all. But the bald Hulk got up. If he had a brain, he'd have a concussion. That's the real talent, the bald bodybuilder, thought a cautious Shei-ken. Invulnerability. The jock grabbed a bigger pebble with his clawed paws and threw it like a ball at the unperturbed hermit. It's no big deal to a crazy hermit after all the battles. Hyun-woo crushed the flying boulder into dust with a single punch. The square-headed Hulk seized the moment and leaped a carcass behind the hermit's back. "Pump yourself up, jerk!" he shouted to the hermit and cracked his fists with sledgehammers. People scattered out of the hall in panic. When two of the top-ranked people start a fight, it's better to get away. The hermit is being squeezed. Qui-Gon was surprised. We need to stop the fight, he decided. So Mason's faction will only get stronger. You want to get pumped? Asked the Hulk how. The overgrown closet chuckled. But the mad hermit only laughed. Compared to the illegal jock boss, the red horse punk, it was all a joke. Only inhibited people with low self-esteem are swayed, the hermit replied, shaking off the dust easily. Now time for a reinforced course of politeness, leaped the mad hermit forward. Baldy got a good look at the fist flying straight into the stone tableau instead of his face. Fist of absurdity struck out and sent the Hulk flying into the first space. Brickface scrambled, but resilience kept him going. Great, here comes the test punching bag, smirked the mad hermit. The cautious Shei-ken stood gaping. The faithful disciple was filming clips for nightly viewings. Qui-Gong was lost behind. For all the Hulk's durability, he had accumulated a lot of damage, Shei-ken remarked. The stone brainless closet went into a deep blackout, still got off easy. The mad hermit defiantly wiped the sweat from his forehead. In fact, he wasn't even out of breath. Stone-faced in third place, the test showed that rocking is nonsense, concluded the mad relationship professor. So the third place belongs to him now, Hyun-woo concluded. Hut, hut, turn your back to the forest and turn your back to me, howled the wind over the monk's hut. The wind howled in the shutters of the ancient temple. The ink master meditated, learning the art of shadows. Congratulations to you, came the voice of a man visiting the lodge for the first time in many days. Now the warrior is the world's greatest mangaka, and divine ink drawing technique, executed flawlessly, admired the bearded one. Nothing special. The mangaka falsely modest, black body ink along the body. That's right. Escorted the mangaka warrior with a glance. The bearded master. A person who has mastered all kinds of drawing and shadowing is a real master. What will you study next? The bearded man asked the great warrior mangaka. The one gawked with red eyes. Nani desu, databayo, thought he. Climb to the top, he said, to meet the master who painted the tramp. Pretty Seo Yeon had already read in the news everything that happened to the crazy hermit. Again he made a mess, sighed the girl. Why worry about Hyun-woo? He has plot armor, replied the pretty girl Kwanseo. She agreed. But that's exactly why it's worth worrying about. Forever such resilience will not work, will not be saddened, the girl. Hyun-woo shattered the whole usual world of hunters by breaking into the ratings. He has too easily shaken the rotten foundations, the whole of politics. He's a layered man, Kwanseo remarked, and tiny Seo-yeon agreed with him. Cutie changed the subject and asked him if he knew about Shei-ken. And what about him, wondered the friend, and stared at the girl, listening intently. He seems to have gotten a girlfriend, the sly fox, So-yeon shared. Romantic Shei-ken was going through the goodies, smiling dreamily. There was a knock on the room door, and he hurried to disperse the pink flies. Qui-Gon, not knowing how else to entertain the guests and grease the mad hermit, placed all three in the association suite. The senator offered a flattering apology for what happened, but clearly it's all part of his cunning plan. The banquet was cancelled, Hulk was taken to the hospital and given prophylactic enemas. A crowd of lackeys from the cream of high society had gathered around the mad hermit. And then Liam convinced the hermit to stay late at the hotel with his apprentice. Liam offered to have a word. It was about a deeper agreement between them. The mad hermit agreed. As he headed for the exit, he discovered a cattail behind him. "Stay home," he said to the mad cat, and it fluffed its fur. 100% of her hostility was directed at the cunning Qui-Gon. The mad student returned with nothing in her frustrated feelings. The cautious Shiken experienced the feeling of any guy when a beautiful girl sits down next to him, even though there is an empty seat next to her. It would be nice to be friends, thought a cautious Shiken. After all, they were both in the hero's retinue now. But a diminutive beauty with the personality of a violent berserker can't be approached so easily. He politely addressed her by her first name, Ms. Mai Ren. 2 scarlet rubies scanned him for the importance of the conversation. The level of interest was somewhere between the baseboard and the floor. A cautious Shiken asked her how they met the mad hermit. The long eyelashes of a possible concubine candidate fluttered slightly. The mad cat agreed to tell, but set her own conditions to the hero's friend. "What does the master like?" asked the girl with the meekness of an angel. Cautious Shiken pondered the answer. At first, the mad friend was only dragging himself over food. But then he got hooked on money, so much so that he even lived with him for free and made him work as a driver and an agent and a housewife. The cat said thanks and perked up her ears, leaving a cautious Shiken wondering what was on the girls' minds after all. The mad student scurried away with a loud slam of the door. What bee had stung her, wondered the cautious Shiken. The mad hermit hobbled over to the expensive tea. The politician was clearly sucking up to him, but the homeless emperor was enjoying it. He quickly cut to the chase, stopping the flow of exhortations. Quan So fake laughed in the spirit of Cao Cao at such a straightforwardness of a mad hermit. He asked Hyunwoo if he knew Geralt Mason, another influential member of the association. "The man is closely connected to the authorities and to the top ranks of the hunters," Qui-Gon said. "Mason is slowly building influence and needs a counterbalance in the association," the wily politician continued. He bluntly asked the mad hermit to take his side in this confrontation. The homeless emperor wondered if he needed all this pile of problems on his scrotum. With the same thoughts, he returned to the room, politics greatly exhausting the mad hermit. He returned quickly, remarked a wary Shiken getting the cookies. The mad hermit immediately stuck his nose in, asking Shiken what he was hiding, forgetting about tactfulness decades ago. "A souvenir," Shiken stated evasively, but Hyunwoo kept up. "Looks like a gift," to whom he asked. Embarrassed, Shiken changed the subject and asked how things were going with Liam. "He might just be idling," the homeless emperor replied. Shiken took a new look at his friend who had gained a lot of political weight. An apprentice in the top 5 of the world, an enemy of the Ares Guild that was a bone in everyone's throat. One shadow of him could change the balance of power on the chessboard of politics, Shiken remarked. Hyunwoo got the offer from the senator because of that, Shikang explained to his friend. That's right, remembered the mad hermit. The senator had promised a free teleporter. He really gave permission not believed by the cautious Shiken, but Hyunwoo was firmly convinced that he had heard about the teleport. The top 50 banquet was held in 2 weeks, and Hyunwoo would need to appear there. These are the terms of the senator's support. Geralt Mason took the chair of the head of Ares and quickly combed all the office rats. One such stood before him and fawned over the report. Boris's deputy himself realized that these were all temporary measures. Ares was finished, but Mason was helping to keep the guild afloat. Obviously, Boris March is just an excuse to use the rest of the guild as he sees fit. But the puny office worm pushed aside all the doubts that were eating away at him with venom from within, and accepted what was. Mason noticed the office plankton's hesitation, and he fidgeted even more. It's all right, he reassured the puppet, and prepared a present. He shoved some strange object into the hand of the simpleton, which made Boriska's deputy surprised. A black bug-like disc lay in the palm of his hand. What is it? The office worm asked. Do as they say, and he can control the members of the Ares Guild. Mason said in a conspiratorial tone. The bald hulk was coming around after the evening's prophylactic enemas. It was very painful and humiliating, especially from underneath. When he rose, he found visitors in his chamber. Geralt Mason himself was waiting for his awakening in the moonlight. They warned Hulk not to mess with the crazy hermit, but he didn't listen, and this is the result. Such painful lessons in politeness the Hulk received from the master of ink manga, the patient said. Who looks like him? Another visitor entered the room. Speak of the devil, Hulk thought, hearing the familiar voice of the mangaka. What's wrong with your face? The mangaka asked, and corrected himself. I'm sorry, it's always like that. Mason smiled contentedly. His mainstay in the political field had returned from training. He theatrically spread his hands and told them it was time to act. Qui-Gon did not move away from the windows. He was waiting for an important guest and lamented that he had not yet arrived. Is he still waiting for him? Another hunter asked the senator. Number 4 in the rankings, the boatman with a huge oar behind his back, suggested that Liam give up. It seems that Hyunwoo is not interested in this encounter. Don't people send notices by mail, pigeons? Asked the girl with green hair, CC. Qui-Gon realized that Hyunwoo was a very peculiar wild hermit barbarian, and there was still hope. There was a knock on the door, time for the formal part of the banquet and his exit. The senator was great in public, after all, that's his main profession. The evening brought together political sharks from around the world, top-class hunters and money bags. Everyone is busy consolidating their corrupt ties and making money out of nothing. Senator the Hall had recently been destroyed but was fine again. The guest turned to Liam. The latter laughed. Oh, those magical guest workers. The boatman touched the senator's shoulder worriedly. He was part-time Liam's bodyguard. He turned his attention to the Mason faction that had just arrived. The inky mangaka also appeared. He neither drank nor ate, as if he was waiting for something. This caused CC to be worried as well. The mangaka hasn't appeared at any official events since reaching the top 5. Now Qui-Gon was feeling the pressure. The Mason faction represented here looked powerful and influential, which meant clients would move to them. Are all the hunters here? Asked Mangaka, the politician next to him, and he looked around the room and confirmed that all the invited guests had arrived. He suddenly unclasped his arms, hitherto crossed on his chest, answered the man beside him. Fine. No reason to wait any longer. Mangaka grabbed the guy by the skull and crushed it with his hand like a ripe watermelon, dirtying everything with scraps of brains. Ink Mangaka also indifferently looked around at the other guests, searching for a convenient target. Liam staggered back, horrified, as if he himself had been nailed to the floor. Why is he doing this in his guild? The crazy hermit was sternly asked by the cute Seo Yeon. It's good here, too, the cheeky hermit answered her. And there's no one here, he replied to her indignant claims. But the cutie got even more pissed off. There's no one here because she doesn't let anyone in here. That's right. Then let's change the location, said the carefree hermit, causing the slave to have a seizure. She rambled on about having to start all the magic circle work all over again. And what's the big deal? The mad slave owner asked, completely failing to understand the question. The girl collapsed in despair. Night shifts. Again. She wailed, to which the hermit suggested that she should save herself. Still, a living slave was more useful. But after all, she still has her main job. The circle has to paint at night for 2 weeks. Just do the afternoon. For her work, they'll find a friend to slave. The mad slave owner quickly decided. The cat nodded, her master merciful. The slave fell to her knees, rejoicing at the relaxation of the labor regime. But what about Liam's proposal? Asked the hermit cutie Seo Yan. Traveling the world with magic circles, it's convenient, the hermit dreamily recalled. But the circle is only for apprehending illegal aliens, frowned cutie Seo Yeon. That's right, confirmed the hermit. You never know where a rift will appear and how many people will be affected, so the teleporter is useful. Hyunwoo approached the slave girl as he heard a knock from the back room. The man knocked when he heard their voices and asked to be let out. Oh, remembered cute Seo Yan, recently caught by the hermit prisoner, she said. I'd forgotten all about him, the embarrassed girl fussed. Let's let him out. She opened the door, but a scary, wild man's face appeared. Another time, the hottie slammed the doors shut at the same second. Why did she close the door? The hermit asked her. But the girl said she was just scared. The hunter in the back room looked pitiful, Hunwoo noticed as he opened the doors again. He begged to be spared. Good thing Seo Yan didn't lock him in the refrigerator and forget him there. It's been less than a month, and already it looks like this, the mad master of torture marveled. You say tell all? Smiled the hermit. This captive has been marinating nicely. The banquet hall turned into a bloodbath. Bodies scrambled, blood splattered, the group of conspirators destroying everyone they saw. Liam was hurriedly getting his men and clients away while there was still time. But disaster was imminent. They would all die soon if no one helped them, the senator realized. It took less than 5 minutes for the conspirators to kill dozens of top-rank hunters. So great was the gap in strength. Bald Hulk's shadow loomed menacingly over the senator. He turned around in horror at hearing the familiar bass and looked his death in the eyes. Boatman saved him from the steel vice at the last moment. The Hulk could have just crushed the weak senator. Crazy bastard. Boatman gritted his teeth. He was second in rank to the Hulk. Tsitsi was also pinned against the wall. Her opponent was much stronger than the girl. Run! The green-haired girl barely said to Liam, telekinesis squeezing her throat. The Hulk came to his senses and attacked the boatman. Liam could only stare at his defeat. Why the hell, he cried out. Why are they doing this? Why have they crossed the line? The mangaka painted the last victim red. Just a necessity, he quietly replied to the senator. To destroy the world. What he was talking about, Liam didn't understand the madman's words, though he heard them clearly. Wow. They started the party without the main guest. The hermit was surprised he had just arrived with his faithful apprentice. That was it, he realized after scanning the conspirators with the ability. Ink Mangaka also recognized his main opponent. Why is this place trashed? The mad hermit asked the senator. Why is everyone so sad like someone died? Hyunwoo wondered. So that's him. The mad hermit heard and turned around. That's who was chasing the bald Hulk. Mangaka came close. Some reenactor again? The hermit asked, and Mangaka introduced himself. No, he said, he'd just come from a comic con. Who is it? The hermit asked, and the obliging faithful apprentice explained that the first number among the hunters was before him. Just in time, just as I was about to sketch, I heard Hyunwoo and wondered if they knew each other. Just heard, Mangaka replied and flicked a drop of ink off his finger. To climb the tower, you have to kill the border guard, said the mangaka in the hat. Quick bold as a known substance, thought the hermit. The mangaka emitted a jet of ink, as if from a water cannon. Climb, the hermit heard, and confirmed his hunches. There you are. You've been caught, you damned illegal alien, rejoiced the mad border guard. Requesting the information once more, he saw his status, which was quite unexpected. Not yet, Mangaka said, but soon I will be. It just takes one small step. The unrecognized artist took his hat off and instantly moved, with a pop of air that closed in where Mangaka stood. And paint a portrait of him in blood, the artist continued. Hand moving, bandaged, the hermit saw a flying fist. Smells like ink and a lonely lifestyle, he managed to think. And ducked at the last second, Neo-Matrix style. Hyunwoo did a somersault on his hands using his spinning energy. He delivered a sudden kick from bottom to top with his foot to the artist's jaw. Mangaka didn't just block the punch, he also caught the hermit in a takedown. Your martial arts, Mangaka said, appreciating the hermit's skills. Bottom of the pile, get out of here, said the unrecognized artist, and guided the mad hermit toward the exit with a slight movement of his hand. There were no doors along the way, so the hermit had to pave the way with his sturdy body. A devoted student became concerned and wanted to step in to help, but the ugly square face blocked the entire view. Wow, what a girl, let's dance, heard the crazy student. I don't dance with freaks, the Dragon Empress replied defiantly. What a nuisance, Hyunwoo thought. Then theater people, now artists. A crazy man of the art showed well-practiced choreography. He threw a lot of punches so fast that his movements seemed a blur. The mad hermit could hardly keep up with the complicated ballet paths. He's actually a bad dancer. Cosplayers, artists, now there's ballet, how long can it be? It's the entertainment of intellectuals. Give folk art, the mad hermit resented. The unrecognized artist was performing at the level of the illegals, perhaps even stronger than them, the border guard felt. Once clamped, one must respond, the mad hermit realized. Unleashed the power of the divine long rook. If it can't handle a two-handed hold, it needs more. Mangaka let the border guard go and thought about it. He'd stuff stuff in his pockets and you'd never notice. The unrecognized artist felt something strange. The mana field around them was expanding. Everything seemed blurry because of it. That's the benefit of 2 weeks of practice, grinned Hyunwoo. The fist of the divine longsword itself. Only lolai is good for groping, but if the target is apprehended, a thorough search can be conducted. The mad hermit applied the 10-stop demonaloli technique. Expanding the mana, he had delayed the artist. Thanks to her, he had increased his internal mana supply. The unrecognized artist was pinned to the ground. He was unprepared for such criticism. The raking hands of the border guard reached for the artist. No one can cross the border illegally, Hyunwoo exulted, neither inside nor outside. He used a wave of love lull on an unrecognized mangaka. The whole neighborhood was flooded with iridescent pink light. The shock waves went round and round on the ground, so that the hermit squirmed, the strong wind throwing sand into his eyes. After assessing the results of the apprehension, the mad border guard was greatly surprised. This unrecognized mangaka preferred older women. The love of Lolas did not touch the heart of the unrecognized artist at all. Loli sucks, the unrecognized artist said, and got behind the hermit's back. Real artists draw mature sitters. Mangaka cracked the hermit on the head. That's a lolly to dislike so much. Couldn't get over the mad frontiersman. What had they done wrong that nature had harvested them like that? He gasped with indignation. And got a kick in the ribs from an unrecognized artist. All those who say that in women the main thing is the soul, hypocrites, said the artist. So what? Objected the hermit. All are good in their own way, he replied confusedly. All your preferences should, firmly stated the unrecognized lone artist. He just likes everyone else and doesn't follow his ideal like your goofy mana. That's what's wrong, mangaka continued. He's been practicing martial ink arts for hundreds of years and knows what he's talking about. Even if he doesn't even think about winning, he told the hermit. Hundreds of years, wondered the frontiersman. And you look as young as you are, you're human, muttered the hermit. Hyunwoo checked the status again. Mangaka was human but with a special ability. He was constantly reborn and could train martial arts for hundreds of years. Nonsense, thought Hyunwoo. What's next? Celestials will descend from the sky. So be it, he said, for such a persistent frontiersman. He uses the best ink, said the mangaka, releasing black mana. To show the true meaning of martial arts, divorces of ink flowed out from behind his back. The unrecognized artist used a strange but very powerful attack. She tossed the fighter in gym shoes back to his corner in an instant. But as soon as he stopped, the unrecognized artist crept up again from the rear. Punch calligraphy shouted out words of power, mangaka. A powerful blow fell upon the honest frontiersman. The attack had taken effect despite the steadfastness of the high rank, and the artist kept responding to criticism of his work. A calligraphic power punch, a percussive dose of pathos, dared the hermit. And the text did not end. The artist shouted it out and made calligraphic strokes. He paused for a moment, accumulating ink, and unleashed another volume of calligraphy punches. A victim of postmodernity, carefully assessed the results of his strikes. The resilience of the mad hermit amazed even him. After all the blows, he remained intact. Strong realized the border guard, someone else would have died by now reading the intricate calligraphy. Isn't it time to make use of the bailout room? The hermit thought. But if you back down now, a loyal student will be jeopardized, and that's a sin. The frontiersman was determined to stay until the end, and adopted a fighting stance. The artist hesitated, either out of pity or love of the theatrical pause. The mad hermit tensed. Everything was at stake now. Everything was blurring in front of his eyes. If the technique didn't work, he would definitely die. Blue screen window, gave out base, cheats enabled, masochist power triggered, stamina boosted. I can't figure out if the artist has given up. Is he stubborn or just dumb? He asked the hermit. I'll finish him off so he doesn't suffer, he said, ending the theatrical pause, and spat out all the ink at once, like he was hiding a squid up his sleeve. But the hunter dodged, simply disappearing from the line of inky attack. Good evening, the artist heard a man's voice from behind him. The mad hermit applied a shadow step and instantly got close to the artist. Zhang Ma's fist, needing to be used like this, broke the artist's ribs with a single blow. Sneaky bastard, gritted his teeth in pain at the unrecognized mangaka. He broke the distance with the opponent, that he had undercut the cheat. The hermit was applying some strange principle of motion recognition. Strike the enemy with his own weapon,